right, welcome everybody to episode 8 of the Content Lab podcast. We're joined today by Ginnie Coleman. Ginnie's a professional photographer with over 8 years of experience in the industry. In addition to that, Ginnie's a media director, editor, and she co-owns a studio in her hometown called The Studio at One Source. Ginnie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You were one of the when I first announced it, there was some people that I was thinking like having right away, and you were one of them. Josie, the one that I had last week, and of course Scott. So I'm glad like we're making this happen in the first 10 episodes.
Well, thank you. I'm feeling a little out of depth. I feel like I'm in the cool kids club now. I'm just
You've
so
always been in the
old compared to
cool
all of
kids.
you.
One of the cool things about this is that I get to know more about my friends and like people that do the same things that I do. And even though like I've known you since the CrossFit Games, I don't really know much about your background. So let's start with that. Let's start with tell me where you're from originally and how was your life growing up?
I am from the greatest state in the Union, Wyoming. So born and raised in the mountains. I definitely am a mountain country girl, but I love the city. I had a pretty typical standard Wyoming growing up. Made a lot of bad choices. I think we broke a lot of laws. I'm really grateful that social media wasn't in play when I was younger. We would probably all be in prison. No, I'm nothing like severely breaking the law, but a kegger here, floating the canal illegally there, all the fun stuff that you just do as country people when you are 2 hours away from a small size city.
That's awesome. And tell me about were you a photographer since you were like young, or is that
No.
something you developed?
Interestingly enough, I actually got my first film camera when I was a senior in high school, but and I know this is cliche and people always say they learned it, but I learned from my grandfather. He always had his camera with him. And he took pictures of a lot of things, but it was really to prove how big a fish he caught. I can't tell you how many pictures my mom has of my grandfather's that he took that were always of fish. Like he would lay all his fish on the ground and take pictures of them so he could show people how big a fish it was before they ate it. In Wyoming, a lot of good brown and rainbow trout. So just kind of learned by watching him, and then got my first film camera when I was a senior in high school. Took a lot of very basic Fuji film, spin camera. And I'm getting back into film now, which is really fun. I actually just started buying some stuff to do darkroom in my house, kind of changing a little bit. So I'm excited to get back to that. And then it kind of wavered. I got busy doing school and working and then getting married and having 4 kids. And so, and then we were going to LA for a Lakers game, and breaking the rules of no photography. But I bought my first SLR, which was a Sony Mavica. And for those people my age might remember them, but the memory recorder was this disc that was like this size, and it was 2 megapixels.
Awesome.
I have it downstairs in my storage. Actually, I need to convert all of those discs I took of my kids, because that's what I took of my kids growing up. And then it just luck would have it. A gym I was going to, a CrossFit gym, was having a competition. They knew I took pictures and asked if I wanted to take some.
That's awesome. So how long ago was that?
That would have been 8 or 9 years ago, because I had been running. I had to have IT band surgery. After preparing, I'd done some marathons, and then preparing for the last marathon I ran was a Chicago, and I had to have IT band surgery, and somebody was telling me that I should try CrossFit to rebuild my quads and hamstrings, because that's why they said my running form messed that up. And so I tried CrossFit and didn't ever run seriously again. I actually did run the next year. It's a race in Des Moines called the Dam to Dam. It's a half marathon, just because I wanted to see if I could do it and not have any knee pain. Hardly trained for it. Best time I've ever had running and no pain. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do 12 miles anymore, let alone.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know you started your photography career in CrossFit, which is the same way I started.
I was photographing my boys' baseball. They played club baseball, but actual first job was a CrossFit. And then, as luck would have it, and I'm going to use that word a lot, somebody recommended me to Pure Pharma, who was at that time a title sponsor of the CrossFit regionals when we used to have regionals. And so I shot for them at the Central Regional, which at that time was still in Chicago. So
That's awesome. We'll get more into the
yeah.
like regionals and CrossFit games. First, I want to go back all the way to college. What do you do? What do you go to college for? Was like your first job or the like most of your life? What do you work on with?
Most of my life has been a mom. So I went to school for business, and then I got a kind of maybe a Renaissance person. I really love education. So I went and did some business and then got a really good job for a cosmetic company called Estee Lauder. And so I was a training coordinator for them out of the Denver market. And then um, my grandpa got sick. He actually had a stroke. And so I went home while I was working, feeling like I had a really good career and life was great. And I just felt like I needed to reevaluate some things. So I literally took a leave of absence from my job for 30 days and sat on my parents' deck, just watching the river go by. And I'm really not kidding you. That's what I did for the whole leave of absence. And then I knew it was just a really weird feeling. Like I knew that wasn't the path I needed to be on. And so I decided to move home and get a job and just kind of worked at a couple different little places, and then I met my soon to be husband. And I can say that I never wanted to get married. It wasn't in my my goal, originally. I didn't want to have kids. I thought I wanted to be this big business person, and obviously things change.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So you say you have 4 kids, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
let me just say, I will be 48. Am I 48? I can't even remember I'll be 49 this year. So inching up to that 50 year.
well, you look great.
Well, thanks. I love when people say that because it makes me feel good that I've taken very good care of my skin. And so that just, but so my oldest is, Taylor is, this is where it gets bad, is when you get older, you don't remember how old your kids are. So Taylor is 22. And then Grant just turned, Taylor's 23, Grant just turned 21. They're 15 months apart. And then we had a really big gap. My husband was getting his master's degree and then he was in law school. And so then we had then we have McKay, who will be 16 next month. And then my youngest little guy will be 12 next month as well. So a couple big gaps in between. Yeah. The last one was a little bit of a shock when I was 36 and found out I was pregnant, but he's just, I'm very lucky. I have 4 healthy kids. And you just hope you've done your best by teaching them to be strong and independent and free thinkers, but also compassionate and caring and,
That's great. I have a question before. Well, actually, let's go with this one. Wendy Nielsen is asking, can you see it on the screen? Is that
okay? It's that Estee Lauder background. Oh, is that what she's saying about the skin? Yeah, it really was, because up until that point, I was of that generation where we put on baby oil and sun in our hair and would lay out all day during the summer with not a care in the world.
I still do it.
Yeah, I actually dig the hair. I like it. I think it looks great. You said, just so you know, and I don't want this to be misconstrued, you're going to be a silver fox when you get up in your 50 and 60s.
I wouldn't be mad about it.
So yeah, definitely skincare, but you will not see me outside without a big sun hat. With having children who played competitive baseball, and you're out at the diamond, 4 and 5 hours a day, especially during high school season, a sun hat and sunscreen are essential. And, I also am going to say, I don't drink and I don't smoke. I don't even drink coffee. So, and I drink a ton of water. And
you also do 100 squats every day.
Yeah, which, it's great, but not. So my face looks great. It's the other things that need some work because I have a really bad problem with sugar.
I feel like we all kind of do.
Yeah, mine's really bad.
I wanted to touch on the having kids, on the time management part of it, because I personally don't have kids, don't really have much going on in life other than I have 2 dogs. But and I always feel like I don't have enough time. I can't imagine being a full-time mom like you, but also a full-time business owner. I see you shooting all the time. You also co-own a studio. How do you manage time and at the same time you have time for your family, for your kids, and also to have a, like a normal life? Because obviously you have friends too, and you like to, go to a coffee shop or something. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there is a sacrifice. And I think for a long time, I've always been I'm very lucky in that I don't have to work. So let me just get that out there. I have a husband who's extremely supportive and very successful. And um, so I'm able to pick and choose, which I know that there are a lot of people who necessarily don't have that option. So I do pick and choose the things I want to work. And I learned a lesson last year. So last year, everybody finally got the go ahead to get events. And it was the first time where I really think I worked what I would consider more full time. So I was literally gone from April through the CrossFit games, and I was home, I think 28 days total from April to August. And I knew at that point that that was too much. Like, I didn't ever want to work full time, and I was grateful for the opportunities that I've had. So I've had to be a little bit more selective. And I also knew that when McKay got to be in high school, the boys I didn't worry about as much, and I don't want to sound like an insensitive parent or uncaring, but girls are different. I mean, the minute I had my daughter, I had this innate feeling that I had to do it a little bit differently with her, because it can be really difficult for young girls and for women. And so I knew I had to be more on hands with her. And I knew that once she got into high school, things were going to change a little bit. And so I wanted to really get myself in a situation to still do what I love, because this is for me, because I don't have to work. It's a break. It's something that I really enjoy doing. And I feel like I connect with the community in a way that maybe isn't, that's different, because I love it. And I love the athletes, and I love the community, and I love what CrossFit as a space does for people, for healthy lifestyles and mental lifestyles. But I wanted to really be more hands-on with McKay this year. And so I did have to make some changes, but it comes with a sacrifice. And that sacrifice maybe wasn't as much time as my spouse and I should have spent together. When you're traveling a lot, you have very limited time together. And normally we take vacations together, and we didn't get to do that last year. And we felt it, it's very hard. So we've, make a better, and we're like gutting our house. And so he's busy too. So not only, so my husband's a patent attorney who owns his own law firm. And so not only is he busy with that, but he's also this Mr. Go to it, I can do everything guy. And so I wanted to paint bathroom shelves, and he decided to gut it to the baseboards. So he's doing that in his spare time. So we're, just trying to find all that. Connection is hard. And I will tell anybody that you really have to consider what your life goals are, kind of what your core values are, and then align your life with how you want to build a business with that. That's why I brought on originally I did the studio on my own, and I brought on a partner who's fabulous. And, I couldn't do it with that MK. She also keeps me in check when I'm not doing my part in it. So it's really nice having somebody that does that. And I just pick and choose. If I'm in town and there's some local high school programs that don't conflict with anything else, and it's only going to be an hour or two, I'll take it. But there are things I turn down too. And I think we'll see a dramatic shift in how much I work even now moving forward. I don't know. I thought I was feeling really burnt out, and then I went and shot men's volleyball last week for the NAIA championships. I'm like, oh, this is so amazing. I couldn't just do, as much as I love CrossFit, I just couldn't do CrossFit all year. And that's all I do, because I was getting really burnt out. And I like to shoot different things that are exciting and make me want to watch more than I want to shoot. That's when you kind of found something that's fun.
Yeah, I see you do it a lot of different sports,
I do.
wrestling, soccer, volleyball, and CrossFit too. So it's definitely shooting a lot of CrossFit can definitely burn you out a little bit. I try to keep it fun with other things too, but just it's just I mean, it's fun. I love it. It's probably the thing that I love the most. But if I was doing that the whole year, I can definitely see it being like, okay, enough of this.
Yeah.
Let me
Well,
try
and
to.
you also have weddings, which are a whole different,
Yeah,
genre in itself and the work that goes into that. And but I think um people will say they won't, but they will get burnt out. You'll get,
absolutely.
I mean, you know what it's like. And it's very hard to shoot the same event if you're, like if you're in an event where you're photographing 17 heats of the exact same thing and stay creative and
Yep,
unique, right? And so it is nice to have some other things in there so that the next time you go to a CrossFit event, you're like, oh, I'm so glad to be back. I'm so excited because now I've been shooting baseball and soccer and um,
absolutely.
other things. It's nice to have some variety just so you don't get creative burnout.
Absolutely. For me, it's a good balance to shoot CrossFit and then also like weddings, family shoots, and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
in the CrossFit space, I'm more like, I mean, I'm not talking to the athletes. I'm just shooting.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We're on the media pit and we're shooting them, and then you can talk to them afterwards. But in a wedding or in a family photo shoot, you're constantly talking, like interacting with people. Like, hey, come here, move here. You're being nice, personable. So it's kind of like a good balance. So but in for me, CrossFit is by far the thing that I like to shoot the most. I just think it's really fun, and not only shooting but also like hanging out with other content creators, which is something you don't get to do in like wedding stuff like that. I mean, you might, if you're doing photos, you might talk to the video person for a little bit, but definitely I've made some of my best friends since I started shooting CrossFit, which
Yeah.
is it's
And that
great.
does make it, and see, that's where I'm a little bit different, and I do enjoy talking to creators, I'm gonna say that, but, and I rarely talk to athletes unless there's something specific, but I love talking to the crowd and the community. I mean, I'll engage with them all of the time. I ask them if they're having fun, what they love about it, what they don't love about it, because I think a lot of people forget that the reason why we get to be there is because those 50,000 people that bought tickets to go to the CrossFit Games, or the 500 or 1,000 member crowd that came in is watching in a local event. They are a vital component to why CrossFit is so successful. And so I love getting to know them and getting to hear, what brought them there. I mean, I think at the CrossFit Games, my role this year was a little bit different, and it was fun because I got to talk to a lot more people. But I mean, there were people, this was their first time at the games and they just couldn't believe what an experience it was. So it's awesome hearing that and seeing how it's evolved.
It really is. We have Anthony popping in. He said, "Thanks, some of my favorite people." Anthony
Oh,
Tom.
boo, I missed you.
We have Corbin saying, "Yo."
I don't.
Corbin. Corbin is he's the media intern at CrossFit Mayhem.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he's always showing support on the podcast. So I
Well,
really
that's
appreciate that.
awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, he's supporting. I think support is important, I do think that, um, yeah, Tina Hills. I think it's important to have one another's support and encourage and engage, but also to help challenge and be better in the model that you have set up and find ways to be more successful if that's your goal, or experience and learn. I think we have a good variety in this space, but I find that in other spaces too. I definitely learn from creators when I'm shooting, collegiate wrestling or collegiate football. There's different things that I don't think about, and I always told myself that if I ever leave an event or a game or something like that, and I have a moment where I think, gosh, I didn't really get much out of that, then it's time to really reevaluate what I'm doing. If I stop learning, then I think it's time to be done.
yeah, absolutely. And I was gonna ask you because some of the guests I've had, they say they find a lot of new ideas, like new creative ideas, by shooting our stuff, like just going outside and shooting trees and travel photography, whatever. Now that you're doing more of other sports, do you find also like inspiration by just seeing other photographers shooting, I don't know, wrestling, the way they compose their images and stuff? Is that something you've been like experiencing since you shooting other sports?
Honestly, I'm gonna say no on that because I look at, photography, I think, completely different than a way than that a lot of people do. Um, because when I go, I don't look at the sport or necessarily, the action that's happening. I look at from a physique standpoint. There are times when if I'm, it's going to sound really, really odd, but if I'm feeling really stuck in how I'm photographing, I'll get out an old anatomy and a physiology book and I'll look at the design of the muscles and physique. And then I'll think, okay, how is this going to look optimum in this movement? Like at what angle am I going to be able to see the muscles, highlighted in, and that's kind of how I get inspiration is I look at how the body was designed to move and then try to capitalize on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really weird, I know.
No,
And
I love it because everybody's so different, and I'm just like learning how some people find inspiration, and then you're telling me some complete different. It's great. I think, I mean, it all makes sense in my mind, but
yeah, it's so that's how how I figure how I change is if I feel like I'm just really shooting redundantly and everything looks the same, I'll get back into just the nitty-gritty of what a body is designed to do and then get motivated again or shoot something completely new that I've never shot. Like I've shot women's volleyball and I've watched men's volleyball, although it's been a long time, but he tried to get me out to shoot this year and I just couldn't, when they were playing at home and I couldn't make it. And luckily they hosted it here. And I was having the time of my life. It was a blast. So that kind of got me a little bit more excited to get back into the things that I just shoot a lot of, if that makes sense.
for sure.
Like there's some things on my list I still want to shoot. I would love to shoot fencing. I'd love to shoot bike racing, I've done some off-road bike, but the one where they're spinning and creativity.
Yeah. So no, that's great. That's probably one of the things I'm gonna try to more often is to shoot other sports too, because when it comes to sports, CrossFit is pretty much the only thing I do. Talking about CrossFit, let's bring it back. You started with the sponsor in about 8 years ago, and you started doing regionals. From there, how did everything evolve to working with that sponsor to now working with CrossFit Games Media? Because that's you shoot for CrossFit, right? HQ whenever you go to the games.
Okay, so let me just say I think there's a big concept of misrepresentation. So I don't shoot for CrossFit. I'm a contractor for CrossFit.
Okay.
And I just want to put that out because I don't want to ever look like I'm actually a full-time employee for CrossFit. They have contracted me for specific things. And so that's how it works is I'm just a freelancer. There's no permanent employment. And so that's how many of us work. I do know they have some full-time media people now. And in the past, before all of the big changes, they had who my boss was at that time. And then one other person that was just a full-time photographer, but all the rest of us, most
Just
of us were freelancers. And I'm not privy to if they were on contract every month as a freelancer or I did stock work for them as a freelancer. Every quarter. And then in the times, then at the CrossFit Games, I was a freelancer for them. And just recently for the Open, did freelance work for. So I will tell you, I thought I was for sure that, and I think you asked, when we were texting back and forth, you said, hey, was there any source of like frustration or you felt like you wanted to quit? I was for sure that being a vendor photographer, shooting for one of the title sponsors would get my foot in the door, like to be with CrossFit. And nothing happened. But I will say I actually never directly reached out to them and said, I just thought, hey, my work's good. They're going to come to me. And I think a lot of people think that. And I had reached out a couple of times and never heard anything back. So finally I decided, and I was always against it, but I decided to volunteer for the CrossFit Games. And I had been against that from the time for a while because I just wasn't sure that I'm like, well, I get paid to do other things. Why would I go and volunteer 4 days of work, long days for not anything in return? But I really feel like now I understand why volunteering is so important because it does help teams identify if you're going to be part of a working team. And the only reason CrossFit Games and, these big events are successful is because they have a team working together. You can't collectively put 12 great photographers together and have them work individually instead of working together and expect it to be fantastic. It's just not going to work. So I think that mine was luck. And this is nothing against the hard work pays off, or I've worked hard, because I do. I think once you get to a certain level, you do work hard. But I think a lot of CrossFit, especially in this space, is because it just happened that you happen to have luck wherever you live. You go to a gym where there's an elite athlete, and I can, I mean, there's a lot of creators in this space. I know that they just happen to have a luck. Doesn't mean they don't work hard now. I don't want to say that they don't, because they do, but they happen to have luck on their side because they were at the right place, and I live in the Midwest where there's not a lot of, lot of options. We definitely, and we don't even, I mean, you live in Florida where you have sun all the time. I mean, we can't even shoot 6 months out of the year outside anyway. Well, heck, right now we can't even shoot outside in the spring because it's 40 degrees and the wind's blowing 50 miles an hour. But, so I think I firmly believe that how I got my foot in the door was volunteering, and them knowing that I'm going to work hard. But it's also a little bit different. When I volunteered for the games, I didn't even take my camera, because I knew I wasn't going to shoot. I wanted to learn. And I'm sure Dave and Ty and Wendy was editing at that time, and Alicia, I'm sure they got really annoyed with all the questions I was asking, but I wanted to learn from what those were the originals. Like when you talk about original CrossFit, you need to have Dave Ray on, or Alicia Anthony, or Ty Randall. Those people that have been in the space. I think Alicia was at the first CrossFit Games.
Yeah, I think Dave. I was talking to Dave in Texas not that long ago, and he told me he shot the 2009 CrossFit Games.
Yeah,
so I'm like, that's OG right there.
Yeah, there's some far better. Yeah, I mean, there's people, and they just have such a really cool perspective on how the sport has evolved. But I mean, so that's how it was. I think they just wanted to see that I was there to work and not make a name for myself because I was shooting one of the top 10 athletes. I mean, yes, the OG is the best, but you all learn from something. It doesn't mean the people, and I don't want people to ever misconstrue things. I just want people to know that, we all have something to learn from people who've been here a long time, but also from people like you, Carlos. I mean, it's really fun to see how your work has evolved and how you're connecting in the space. And I really think because you have an experience in wedding photography, you use light in a way that a lot of people don't get. And that's what's really cool to see. I mean, we could go on and on about how light really matters, but you use it to your advantage. But a lot of people don't understand that because they've never shot wedding photography, where if you don't know light, you don't get a job, right? In CrossFit, that's really easy because you just black and white if your SOC is really bad.
True. No, I love what you said about finding opportunity in volunteering. I feel like there's a misconception of people thinking that, oh no, I make X amount of money, like why would I volunteer? Kind of like just an ego thing. Because they're very successful, or wait, somebody's calling me. Because they're very successful or things, and they don't think, like, why would I have to start from zero in a different industry if I'm I don't know, good wedding photographer or something. But in my mind, that's kind of how you gain respect and how you get your foot in the door with other people too. And that's how I got into like the CrossFit, like being into the competitive part of CrossFit. Is I got an opportunity to be a volunteer at one of the competitions here in Pensacola called Beach World, and then from there, it kind of like, I had a portfolio I could show people, and then, as you said, like knowing the right people, being the right time. Somebody local it's a coach that had some masters athletes that were going to the CrossFit Games, and I was the only photographer he knew that I lived like 5 minutes from him, and that's how I went to my first CrossFit Games. So it was just an opportunity, pretty much of volunteering, and then, as you said, kind of being lucky because it could have been anybody else. I don't even think if he saw he probably saw my work, but it was just the right person right there. He's like, okay, let's go to games. And then once you get that opportunity, that's when I'm like, well, now I gotta show him or show everybody else like what I can do with a camera.
And that's where I think, that's where I know the hard work comes into play, right? You get that opportunity, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to show you what my work ethic is. And, and that's what makes it pretty amazing when you do have that one opportunity. You need to take it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't, I think volunteering gets a bad rap for a reason too. You know, I think I do think it's vital. I mean, events couldn't make it without volunteers. They couldn't be successful without volunteers. But as someone in a creative position where in theory you should be paid for your work, you kind of have to find when your stop is, right? Like when you do your plans and your goals for the year, whether you do a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan, you know, you have to identify at what point is your stop point, right? I mean, that's kind of with everything, kind of like when you design a budget every year,
I
you
agree.
know, this is what I'm going to spend on this. It shouldn't be any different for this is the amount of time I'm going to donate in this program, and then see if that gets me to where the next level I want to be at, you know. And then when you do get an opportunity to volunteer, if you aren't using it, and this is where I think it fails, is if you aren't using it as an opportunity to learn instead of an opportunity to be, for lack of a better word, selfish, it will be a downfall for you. Like people will see that and will notice that. And, you know, I want to know that, like, if you and I are on the floor together and you were a volunteer for one of my events and you watched and you learned, I want to know that the next time I bring you on and hire and pay you, that if I'm over here shooting, it's somebody who's lifting the heaviest lift of the event, you're okay with being over there shooting somebody that's only lifting the lightest amount, right? Like it's an ebb and a flow. And so a lot of the people I work with, we have that symbiotic, you know, that ability to be like, okay, I know that's where Meg is at, or I know that's where Ty is at, or Charlotte is at. And we work in this circle where we're moving. So we're getting different things, and not 13 people are in front of Rich Froning. You know what I'm just using it because you're mayhem. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think it's really
100%.
vital.
And it happens to me too whenever now I'm in a position that I'm privileged to hire people for some competitions. And it's the same thing when people ask me for an opportunity to volunteer. I love the volunteers that are always asking questions, that you see they want to learn, and like they also accept feedback very well and stuff like that, you know. And you see it like, hey, you know, if you see somebody shooting this athlete, you don't have to shoot from the same angle, go somewhere else. And the people that I see that are like that, like very well, you know, like they just appreciate, like, you know, the opportunity, and they also work hard and they communicate well with the team. Those are the people I want for my next competition. You know, you can be, you know, the best photographer in the world, but if you don't connect well with the team, if you don't accept feedback from other people too, or like, because I mean, sometimes you just tell them, hey, you know, I got this part covered, you can do something else, and then they get mad because oh, why would you talk to me like that, you know? I'm
Yeah.
experienced. Those are the people that unfortunately I don't want on my team. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not about, hey, you're better than me, or this person's better than the other one. It's whoever works best with the team, and then from there, it's just gonna be better for everybody else around us.
And that's important because, you know, I know that a lot of times, you know, it's just, unfortunately, we are, you know, we tend to be selfish sometimes. And you know, and I'm not an exception. There's times when I'm extremely selfish in my personal life, and I try not to be in my professional life. But you do have to be able to remember the biggest priority is not you. It's not even your team. It's the name of the client that you're working for. And so if you're shooting at, you know, I think you're in now you head the beach brawl, right? Or whatever the beach. Yeah. Like you're the media director for that now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how you've progressed, which is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
But, you know, ultimately the responsibility is, how do I make this event look the best, and how do I make it so we represent the event for the CrossFit community as a whole, not just who we think is important, or, you know. And so that's something that you have to remember too, is, you know, when you're building the teams, you need to, like you said, you don't need to get mad because somebody's asking you to shoot scaled or adaptive. That's where that point comes back into play about, hey, those scaled and those intermediate and those even RX, they're the reason you're getting paid to photograph this event. It's not because of the elite athletes. And as much as I love the elite athletes and they make the sport exciting, they are not the reason that the events are successful that the way they are,
Very
because
true.
people get to go to these events and feel like they're part of a bigger picture. And
And
that's what I love
yeah, what
about
some
it.
people don't understand is that a photo for a scale athlete means so much sometimes. Like you're talking about people that maybe, overcame, I don't know, some type of disease, or like, I don't know, they were 50 pounds overweight, first competition ever, and they see a picture of themselves it can be on the page or even just after just sending it to them. It just means so much. Elite athletes get pictures all the time. And I
Yeah.
remember, well, I'm not gonna touch on the point, but yeah, elite athletes just always, get the best pictures and they get the best coverage, and that's okay. I mean, they deserve it. They've worked hard and
Mhm.
they're out there, they're the best in the world. But the best messages I've gotten, it's from people tell me it's their first competition. They never thought they were gonna be able to do a pull up, and they're super happy that we were able to capture a pull up and or a burpee or whatever. And it's really cool, and that's what some people don't understand, that photographing those scale athletes is just it's incredible for them. It just means so much, is to have somebody that's, for example, if you go to Beach Pro and then they're like, oh my god, Ginnie that takes pictures at the CrossFit Games is taking pictures at me too. Like it just feels good for them.
Yeah. Well, I think also that's where community connection comes into point. I would like to think that, especially in the community that I'm at and in the, the Midwest events that I shoot at, that many of the people, just based on emails that I've gotten, they reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, I can't believe you remembered me telling you that my team partner has never gotten a muscle up." And I made sure, like there's times I listen to what's being said around me. And that's why I think talking to people is so important. Like, "Oh, hey, what team are you watching?" Because if you talked and connect to people, I knew that they were going to have a muscle up event. It was a bar muscle up event. So then I raced over there when I knew she was up, and guess what? She got it and I was there to photograph it, which I would have never known had I not connected beforehand with people and talk to people to find out things like that. So I would hope that the people, especially at these Midwest events where I shoot, that's something that they would say is like, "Well, she seems to know, and I know things that are happening or that are the first time," or what you touch on. It's because I like to connect with the people around me and find out what they're there for, and what's happening, and so that we can give them that experience. Because
Yeah, absolutely.
it's there is nothing greater than seeing somebody who didn't, well, even if it's they stepped on the competition for the floor for the first time ever. Like, you want that picture of them coming out on for their first heat, right? Like, because that in itself is an achievement. I'm not going to compete. I'm a wimp. I don't want to do that, but and I'm also afraid of that. So I think being able to get that and see that means more than anything, just because it's quite an amazing thing. Same from running the tail.
Yeah. So Brian Carmack says, same from running races. The front runners get the most photos, and so runners get left out. There are usually new runners, those training hard, first timers. The photos always mean so much. And yeah, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about it. First time you're doing I don't know, an Ironman or something.
Oh,
You
I'm not
always
going to do an Ironman. No
I'm,
way.
I'm just
I'm too afraid to
I'm just
swim in water.
well, let's do a first time you do a 15K. Obviously, like for some people, it's just something they never thought
Yeah.
it was gonna happen. So just
Yeah.
having a picture of that moment finishing, it can mean so much.
And I would agree with that. I do think that I will say that for all of the events that I've been able to photograph, I always, like when I schedule as a media director, the way I set up the schedule is so that I know everything is covered. And I know and I learned from Ty for that. Like, he taught me how to develop a schedule so that I can ensure, all the divisions are covered and all the heats are covered. And does that mean everybody's going to get a picture of every single movement they do? No, but we're going to get at least one. We're going to try. And I know that we've been able to get that content for the things that we've photographed. I would love to see it, more out there, but it's it's definitely something that you should always be mindful of as a photographer, is everybody is paid the same entry fee, right?
100%. Yes. Let's dive in a little more into you as a content creator. Let's first talk about when you first got started. What were some of your like the biggest challenges you've had just getting brand new into the industry? Anything that comes to mind?
Um, I feel like for me, the biggest challenge was just location, just because I didn't have, we had a gym here that would go to regionals. But at that time they weren't allowing any, media passes. I'm sure, I don't know if you remember, but before 2019, it was very restrictive. The only people that could shoot at the CrossFit Games legally were people who, had were either a title sponsor or worked for the games team. And so and I'm a by the book girl, so I wasn't ever going to just take a camera and shoot um, and and go against their policy. And so I think that was always a challenge, is feeling like I was in an area where I just didn't have the opportunity to shoot people who could have given me that connection. Because again, I do believe a lot of it is luck, and then you start working hard. And so I just didn't. And so that felt like it was kind of a stalemate. So that's why I looked into other things to shoot. That's why I did high school sports, because then I could, have parents, a lot of schools have, like the parent picture takers and things like that. But, they don't, even in that, I would see that you'd see some pictures and they'd highlight the stars, but they didn't take pictures of, all the other athletes, or at least enough of them. And they certainly didn't take pictures of the band. Like, that's the best part of a Friday night football game. Like, why aren't you taking pictures of these guys? Like, they work hard. So I was able to really capitalize on a kind of a missing component, because then parents would hire me just directly for their kids' picture, their students' picture, their athletes' pictures, or for band pictures or things like that. And so that's kind of how I just filled the gap, because I just thought all I wanted to do was shoot CrossFit. And that's kind of evolved as the years have gone on, and nothing really new has, I mean, I don't want to say that CrossFit is still exciting. I still love those events, but like I said, it does get, sometimes you get really just redundant in the way you shoot. So it was nice to have a variety. So it was just finding ways to get creative here. And I'm fortunate that I get to travel a lot too. So it's just creating when I travel, architecture. And
yeah, I feel like every time I go to a new town, you always tell me, go eat here, and I love it. I
yeah,
already
see,
know how to text where.
that's another reason the body needs some work, is I like food. I'm not gonna
Me
lie.
too.
I love good food, and I research before I go. I mean, I have all these, I like really nice restaurants too, which is a downfall, but and I like dives, but yeah, I love good food. So yeah, where are
That's
you
great.
going next? I'll tell you where to eat.
I'm going to Vermont next week. Actually,
Okay,
I
well,
live not next week, tomorrow. I live tomorrow morning.
oh, fun. What are you doing in Vermont?
I'm shooting some uh, demo workout videos for a competition in Spain called the Madrid Championship.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna be doing the videos for their demo workouts.
Okay. Well, are you going to go to Madrid for that?
I don't know yet. I mean,
Okay.
hopefully, I don't know. I'm not
Well,
sure.
I would love to go to that, but if you do, I'm going to make you take a day trip to Barcelona and go eat at the best restaurant in the world.
Okay, I'm down. Let me know. We have Renato, Fury Photography, sending it right here.
Ginnie, what is that?
I don't know what MFS.
I don't,
Yeah.
MFSS. I have
Oh,
no clue.
I think I know what it is, but whatever.
Oh.
He's just excited to see you here.
Oh, okay.
So, talking about content creators, who are some of the people that inspire you at the beginning of your career?
Um, well, I'm absolutely going to say, the people that I admired from afar for CrossFit, which was Dave Ray, Alicia Anthony, and Ty Randall. I think Dave, because what was really great about Dave, and is still great about Dave, is he shot with an eye on a professional level. And what I mean by that is, if you look, and this isn't saying anything bad, and I don't want to be misconstrued, but If you look in the professional space, images, Olympic wise, and Getty wise, and AP wise, images are very clean. They're very natural, straight out of camera color, very minimal edits. Horizon is straight. That's professional, true professional level imagery. And that's the way he taught us to be, or at least he taught me to be. It's like no wonky, you crop the right way, no weird angles. I think he tried to instill that elite level professionalism that you see in professional sports from us. And Alicia just could see things before they were happening, and just like you could watch her shoot and she just kind of slowly move along because she knew what was coming and she'd get it right. It just was really fun to watch Alicia shoot, because she had, she's an OG. She was at the first CrossFit Games photographing. And so she had a way of shooting that just, I don't know, it was kind of like poetry watching her shoot. So I admired her. And Ty, everybody, you got to love Ty. He just has and honestly, I wish he lived somewhere where he had opportunity, where he had more luck, because he's one of the best shooters there is. And he also has the methodology that makes you think about how you're shooting, instead of just going out and taking a picture of somebody doing a squat. One of the things I admire about Ty is that anytime that I shot, and Dave did the same thing, but whenever you would shoot for them, you would get an AAR, like after action review, and it would tell you, hey, this is where I really saw some great success, and these are some things I would work on. And I always appreciate that, because if you already think you're the best that you are, you're wrong, because you can always learn and evolve and grow and change. And so I think those are the three I would say, just because my start was in the CrossFit space, where I feel like they taught me to be such value, that's why I've been able to segue into different, March Madness event, and being able to shoot at a different level. Like I'm going to be shooting some AAA for the Iowa Cubs, which is Chicago Cubs. Sorry, my Invisalign, I can't talk. I have new ones today, and they're really hard. Hi, I love you too. I feel like because of that, it's segued into some more opportunity, kind of at a higher tier level of photography, because I was taught the right way. And there's nothing wrong with artistic. I don't want to say that, but if you compare the two spaces, they're really pretty far apart, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you see? Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it 100% makes sense. And I think I kind of touched on that point in one of the episodes. I love that you can see the contrast between like the OGs of CrossFit and the way they shoot, and that change that happened after 2019, when they allowed a lot more people to go to CrossFit Games, and a lot more, you see now a lot more photographers now. And some of those photographers are, wait, somebody's calling me again. Some of those photographers are they come from different industries and like different backgrounds, and they're applying those things into CrossFit. That's why you see so many like different angles. Like in the past, you would never see kind of like a Dutch angle and a tight shot and stuff like that. It's just different. The colors that you see now are also a lot different, a lot warmer. And I like both, because it's kind of like refreshing to see something different, but at the same time it's really awesome to see the way that people like Ty, like you, like Dave Ray, just shoots. It's just super clean and super like OG. You see it, you're right away, you're like, okay, like it just reminds me of like what CrossFit photography is, because that's kind of like what I used to see whenever I would check like CrossFit photography, just right there. So and I'm in for both. Obviously I'm more into the trendy artistic part of it with my photos. I like tighter shots and like more portrait and stuff like that. Some people like always mess with me. They're like, "Oh, dude, you always have your camera sideways," but that's just kind of like what I like to do, and also for what when I shoot for example, for Mayhem, most of those pictures are gonna be used for social media, and that's one of the things they want. They want it to be portrait style, and I guess they like my style, so that's why I keep
Yeah.
using what I did. But in there's nothing wrong with either or in my mind, and I enjoy both.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think there's space for both. I think there's and it's fun to learn and see different creative. Now, I mean, I might question you on the color, the warm. Like I have a big this is the old school in me, but I don't mind editing warm, but if the skin tone is off, there's a problem. No, that's just me because I know that if I submit that to the organizations that I shoot for on a professional level, it's going to get thrown out. Like they're never going to
Yeah,
use that because they like true two tone skin, like true to tone colors. It should never change, like especially in the like in the collegiate space and the baseball space, but it shouldn't change what your hex color of your uniform is, right? Like that's kind of the line I take with how I shoot and I edit it. Because if you're a team with purple and the edit comes out and it looks like you're kind of blue, there's an issue with that, right? Because you're no longer be identified by what your true team color is, or things like that. So I think there's a time and a purpose for that kind of editing. CrossFit space allows you a little bit more flexibility in that, but in the professional space, that's not necessarily
yeah,
so,
yeah.
right? So
You never see any like off colors when you're going to like a professional page, sports or something.
yeah, no,
And I think also one of the reasons why it's been changing so much in CrossFit is, I mean, I guess in every sport, it's just social media, like Instagram, like the way that, for example, like now videos, like you don't see too many of like your normal horizontal videos. Now you see reels, and it's
yeah,
just kind of like people adapting to the trend because reels get a lot more views, and I guess they're trying to like Instagram's trying to take over TikTok. So
yeah,
at the end of the day, I feel like it's people adapting to the trend or to what the people like, even though for some of those people are not, it's not their favorite thing. I have Bennett, Bennett Looper?
yeah.
He's one of my best friends.
Well, I
He
know
was,
of him. I don't know if I've
yeah,
actually ever met Bennett in person.
yeah, he was talking about that in the episode that we had. He's like, sometimes I hate to play the game because he's into more like the storytelling part of videography. Like he likes more like cinematic stuff. But I mean, for to like make the people happy and like the audience, he has to shoot reels, and that's kind of like his assignment. Sometimes he has to make those 15 to 30-second reels, and that's one of the quotes he said, like, I don't want to be remembered as somebody that makes really cool like real stuff like that, but it's the game that we're playing right now, and I have to play it.
Yeah, that's where I fail. I ju I've tried to do reels like of, um, but I just feel like I feel like for me personally that it's just very narcissistic. Like I can't I the squats one has been a very hard one. Like that's why you'll see like my squats are not, I try to get as far away possible as I can in between the camera view and my Peloton and my back wall because I just don't I mean for me but that could just be, the day I grew up in. Like it just we didn't, and so I don't think I've ever done a reel, honestly.
And there's
But
nothing wrong with that. I love that you stick with your style and you rock it. And
That's I mean, I would if a client asked me to, like,
all
that's
right.
why I hire people who are much more adept at social media than I am for events like that, but, um, yeah, that's where I'm old enough that I just don't think I'm gonna change on that component either.
I don't think you have to change on it. We had,
Yeah,
well,
so,
I
I
missed
mean, it
this
is
one.
interesting, the whole dynamic of how, social media has changed the creative
Yep,
game.
for sure.
I think only years from now will tell us if it's been for the better or for the worse. I think
Mhm.
there are days that it's definitely for the worse. The comparison game, the um, the bullying game, the targeting game. I think there's a lot of things that are not great about social media that makes it really hard to want to try to learn and evolve in that portion. So you
Yeah,
know,
definitely. There's some pros and cons. I feel like some pros is that it's allowed people, a lot of people to show their work into a broader audience because you
Yeah.
can reach so many people on social media. And I feel like a lot of people have gotten opportunities because of the new, era of social media. People just posting their favorite pictures and people like them. I don't know, hey, do you want to shoot my wedding, stuff like that? That's something you never saw in the past. I mean, I wasn't in the industry before social media, so I don't really know. I'm just talking kind of like what I'm
Yeah.
imagining like it was. But yeah, as you said, there is so many cons too. And I feel like we all go through that too, like just the comparison and like some people sending some messages that you don't want to see, but just kind of like what we have to deal with in the present.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's hard all around. I mean, comparison has always been there, right? I mean, it was there before social media. Social
True.
media just has exemplified it by a
It's
thousand
now it's
percent.
easy, yeah, just right there.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you were
everybody,
always comparing to the athlete next to you or to the person in a job next to you. This just takes it a different level, and it's just trying to find the balance on remembering what your core values are and what your goals are. I mean, I have my core values tattooed on my wrist. And so it's a constant reminder of where is my focus at? What is really a priority in my life and what really ultimately matters at the end of each day?
yeah,
Does it matter? I mean, and that's how I try to gauge. I mean, I just want to be a good human. I want to treat people kindly. If I get to shoot some really cool stuff in between that, great. But I want to, I just want to give where I can and help where I can and advocate for and stand up for people when I can. And, I don't know.
yeah. And I think you do that very well. I don't know if we met briefly at the games when I was with my friend Nick,
Yeah.
and he introduced each other. But after that, like I saw you on the floor shooting, but we were both working. And I remember after the games, you sent me a text like, "Hey, it was nice meeting you. I hope you had a great experience." I'm like, "Okay, this is the nicest person ever." Like, just send me a message, like, just being like, "How was your experience?" and all that. And then from there, we kind of like just kept on sending messages to each other, like, "Hey, how are you doing? I love
Yeah.
this picture you took," and all that. So, and I think that's important just to create that type of connections and just being kind to people just gonna take you so much farther.
Well, I think ultimately that's what matters, right? Is I mean, there's a lot of times I get it wrong. Don't discount that. There's a lot of times I get frustrated and I'm challenged and I'm irritated, but I really hope at the end of the day, it'll be like your situation where I do remember reaching out to you because it was nice to meet you. I was making sure Nick was hooking me up with that coconut lime, and then because it was hot and
Yeah,
and I mean, I always hope people have a good experience because in whatever they're doing or shooting, and I hope they learned and had fun, and I hope they know that they can always ask me for help or go get a water. I don't know,
yeah.
whatever you need,
You
you know.
you do like always like tell, like, make sure everybody's okay. Because I remember when, I'm not gonna say the word because the video's gonna get banned, but when I was sick, shortly after the games, you were like reaching out to me like, "How are you feeling? Like, make sure you eat, make sure you drink a lot of water." Blah, blah. So it's like, it's nice to have people like you that always make sure that everybody's fine. And from I think, yeah, Eric from Imam Photography posted something about you, like Ginny, the protector, and
The
then the comments were everybody like, "Yes, that's exactly how Ginny is. She always makes sure everybody's fine." So I
Yeah, well,
mean,
I hope. I mean, I that's that's what I always hope is I just want to, help when I can and, make sure it's the mom in me, right? Make sure
yeah.
everybody's taken care of. I can do that because I'm old enough to be many of your guys' mom.
And now it came to my mind. We were talking about social media. I also feel like social media has opened a lot of doors to people for like learning new things because it's so easy to find like tips, to reach out to people. Like, for example, like you reached out to me through social media because you found my Instagram handle right away. And I feel like I've learned from you because I've asked you questions. And that's something that I don't know if in the past, like how people did it, like just to, like, for example, we have YouTube now that's so easy to, that's kind of how I learned how to take pictures, just checking on YouTube, what's aperture, what's ISO, like how to compose an image. So I think that we always talk about like the cons, which is true. Like there's a lot of negatives comes out of social media, but the positives are very positive.
Yeah, I do think there, yeah. I mean, I think, like we talked about editing styles and creative styles in social media and platforms, there's a space for both. You
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean, long ago, you would have had to learn from a couple of these, the art of photography, how to read a photograph, some of these books I have on my desk all the time. That's how you learned. But you're right, having YouTube and having, social media, when you are able to look at people's processes and help apply that in the way that you create, it is certainly more beneficial than taking a full course credit college class to learn that. It's definitely easy for creators in this space to be self-taught, as many of us are, and so that is a benefit.
Yeah. So we have Brian Karamek who says, Con, every event wants photos as fast as possible to share, no downtime to edit or adjust. Really difficult for single photographers or small teams. Have to be great at providing a fast turnaround.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, there's a sense of urgency for certain components. I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to event photography. Not only do you have the demands placed on you by, your high level athletes, which that's, again, I believe that every athlete is important, but the reality is you have high level athletes who need images to engage your social media rhythm as fast as possible. But people also are forgetting your assets and asset deliverable lists, like your partnerships and your vendors, and all of those components are so vital in social media. So, the fast turnaround, that's why sometimes it's really great to have editing teams to do that for you. Because when you're on your own, it is very hard, and it's hard to compete with somebody who just takes a cell phone picture and, even though it's not the quality, but there's just so much that goes into getting deliverables out, that the pressure is on us as photographers, but the pressure is on our media directors and our sports information directors is even more so than it is on us. And I think a lot of people forget that, great, I'm here shooting for Loud and Live at Wadapalooza, and I have these 20 folders where I need to get athletes, but they forget that the leadership for Wadapalooza also has all these other asset deliverables that need to get out, if not more urgently. You have a responsibility to the people who sponsor your event to get them the content. You promise that, and that's why it's just such a hard game sometimes to play.
Yeah. And that goes,
Definitely, they get underappreciated for all the work that they do.
yeah, and that goes back to playing the game, like playing the social media game. Because if you're a brand or you're a team, you want to show those pictures like as fast. I mean, I'm saying like if I'm working for a team, like they want to show the pictures after event as fast as possible, and they want to be the first one. Like for example, Mayhem wins an event, they want to be the first one to post.
Yeah.
Event one went well, blah blah. Instead of waiting for somebody else to post, and then I guess they get the engagement and all that and that. So it's kind of like playing the game. You just have to.
Yeah. Well, and
They're
that's hard in
expecting
this
a fast
space now.
turnaround.
I mean, and I think, Carlos, and you might not agree with this, but that's what's hard about in this space now is it is really, really hard at a big event like at the CrossFit Games, where you have Mayhem Freedom crossing the line and you're there specifically shooting for Rich Froning and his team, right? Like, you need to get that finish line shot when they come across the line first. Because you have 40 other people standing next to you that aren't shooting for a Mayhem except for the CrossFit Games, that you're competing against them, and that's what makes it hard, because you've really lost the original content that you really are hoping to get as for cross. And so I think that's a big gray area that could warrant a whole nother discussion. Is I get why having I see both sides. I get why having so many photographers or allowing so many media passes is fun, because it keeps engagement high and it keeps pictures coming out. But then it's also discounting that original content, and nothing looks unique anymore, right? Like,
I
how many
agree.
people got so many of the same shots that you did, and were you able to beat them because they're like, oh great, I got a picture of Rich Froning crossing the line, I'm going to post that, before CrossFit Mayhem ever even got the opportunity to, right? So I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying that it
Yeah,
affects the checks and balances on how you create original content for the company you're actually paid to shoot for, right? And then
absolutely.
that's where misrepresentation comes into play, right? Because you are the only person besides CrossFit and CrossFit Games that technically has the authorization to shoot those athletes. I mean, when they sign the waiver, they sign it for CrossFit. They don't sign it for every other person. And maybe they've amended that wording, but for most waivers, that's not how it works. Like legally, you can't give everybody authorization to shoot a picture of you. So I don't know. I mean, it's a whole interesting thing, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure it's very
I
hard.
agree. I agree with you. It's also a tough line to like separate like who can be shooting here, who can't, because it's just impossible to like have somebody checking like, oh no, you can't be here. It's
Yeah.
only like sponsors or like CrossFit Games media. So, but I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think it's last year got a little better. In 2019 there was a lot more photographers. I don't know how it's gonna be next year. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's a little more
Well, I think you got a little bit different access than just regular like people photographers, right? Like I remember them only allowing certain people in the pit in the
mhm,
arena. Obviously, at North Park, there was one side where you guys couldn't go.
correct.
I didn't know. I don't know. Did they allow vendors on that side where we were at? I just,
No, I think
okay.
only CrossFit Games media and Noble.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, so it's so they were trying to help
Mhm.
change that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, the media pit on the Coliseum was a lot smaller this year.
Yeah,
In fact, we only had one. I think Mayhem only had one pass
yeah.
for the
And
pit,
that
and it
and
was
that
four of
helps,
us.
but that helps it, right? That
Yeah,
helps allow you to get the shot that you need, and that again, you don't have 20 other people standing right there getting the exact same. It doesn't mean that and the above image isn't going to be similar, but at least then in that instance you're getting original content for your team. And I don't know how you make everybody happy. I'm glad that's not my role, because I'd just be like, nobody can get in but these people. See, because I want them to have original. I want my title sponsors to have original content. I mean,
yeah,
that's just how. But I don't see it the same way that people in those roles see it. So
yeah. No,
yeah,
but I definitely agree with you. We'll
yeah,
see what happens this year.
yeah. I don't.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows? You just never know. But definitely for the bigger events, that's a big issue. Is
yeah,
because you don't see anything cool in content that you're getting, because everything else, because that what you're seeing has already been posted, the minute they come off the floor.
yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't say makes me. I wouldn't say it makes me mad, but sometimes when let's put an example. I'm not saying this happened, but I don't know. Yeah, Mayhem Freedom wins the last workout at the games, and they're celebrating. Those are pictures you want to get to the social media manager as fast as possible, so she can post like like our team won, Mayhem,
Yeah.
and all that. And then you see 10 other people posting that picture like right away. You're like, oh gosh, like you
Yeah.
know
Yeah, and that's hard, and that's and I get it's exciting for everybody, but I also think that's
Yeah. And I wouldn't I won't say they don't do it in a bad way. They don't do it because they want to
no.
like take credit of anything. It's just a cool moment, and they admire Rich, and they admire the team. So for them it's like a cool moment.
Yeah.
And I agree, I get it. That's why I'm saying it doesn't make me mad, because I know they don't do it in a bad way. But
Yeah.
it makes me like, oh gosh, I wish I would have it would have been
I
Mayhem
wish
the
we
one
would have gotten
posting.
that
Yeah.
out there first, and there's
Yeah.
only way to do that is hardwire, right? Like, and they're not gonna allow that.
Yeah. So let's do one more question out of the people before we start wrapping it up. So we have Jordan 11. He says, biggest piece of advice for a newer photographer to grow and challenge themselves over the next few years.
Okay. Well, I would say my biggest piece of advice is to develop a game plan. I am a big fan of goals and a vision board. What do you want to achieve and how do you want to achieve it, and give yourself a time frame. Say, okay, I want to shoot for a company, or I want to shoot for one of these elite teams. You have to make the connections, develop friendships and relationships, and develop ways and opportunities to learn. I said earlier that volunteering is a double-edged sword, but it's absolutely vital to being able to learn in that environment, and challenge yourself to for the next time. Say, okay, I'm going to volunteer this year. I'm not in this space yet. I'm new to the space. I would really love to shoot the CrossFit Games in a paid capacity for someone. So this year I'm going to volunteer at this and this and this. You also have to think in, cost and expense and, what am I willing to invest in myself, which is what your expense to go to these events and volunteer would be, before I'm going to seek opportunities for paid. So you have to, make a vision board and say, this is where I want to get. These are the goals in my life, or my core values in my life. How do I apply those towards my achievement? Like one of my big core values on my tattoo is permission. And that permission means permission to shoot the way I want to shoot, and permission to be vocal about the things I want to, but it's also permission to fail and permission to make mistakes. So it's a constant reminder that I have to allow myself permission to progress in a way that I think that's best for me, but to seek other ways to do it. So volunteer a couple of other times, seek out people who you admire and ask for mentorships. Ask for intern opportunities. Those are, I can't tell you how many I see day in and day out in Full Shelter, where there are so many interns, but there also has to be a limit. You have to identify what your limits are and where your stopping point is, because as much as it's a terrible thing to say, people will take advantage of free. So,
Sure.
and, we are to blame because we allow it to happen. Athletes are to blame because they ask for free stuff all the time. And events are to blame too, because, they rely on it to make their events successful. I mean, it's a circle of all of us doing things wrong to not bring us to the level where creatives should be. But challenge yourself to a vision board. I know that sounds really funny. Cut some pictures out of a magazine and put them on your board and say, what do I want to achieve at what level, and what is my progress, and give yourself a stopping point, and then give yourself what's next. Like at the end of your vision board, you have your goal, and then identify what's next. You always hear the saying, I just heard it the other day where people are like, people always just plan for the wedding, but they never plan for what life is like after that. Like you put all this effort into getting married and planning your special day, but what happens 6 months later?
You're right, yeah.
So plan ahead. Like what's next? I get to this level. What's next? Have a little bit of insight into what is moving you forward. Because I mean, you think, like, I don't know him personally, but I can't imagine that with as successful as Matt Fraser has been, that he just planned out his life and said, I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games and win this many times, and then I'm going to be done. Like, I can't imagine that he didn't already have. He just doesn't seem like maybe he wasn't. Maybe he's like, oh, now I'm going to do this. But he just doesn't seem like that type of person with the level of success that he's achieved, where he just was like, I'm going to win the CrossFit Games and that's going to be it. I mean, you have to plan for what's next too. And be okay. Give yourself permission if it doesn't all pan out the way you aligned it the first time. Readjust, realign. Everybody, you can learn as you go, and you can adjust and adapt.
There he goes, Ginny, dropping the knowledge bombs.
And don't work for free all the time. No.
Yeah, I love everything you said. I think it makes sense, and people in the comments are agreeing right here. Lillian, she said, totally agree. Volunteer is the best way to get in and make connections. You never know who you'll meet along the way.
Yeah.
And then Jordan says, thanks, guys. That's how I met Carlos. Jordan volunteered for the Fittest Experience in Texas, and that's how we met. And that's how I met Charles too. I don't think he was volunteering. He was hired by the event, but that's how I met him. Yeah. Great people. Yeah. But what you said, I think it's a great advice. It's a perfect way to answer that question by Jordan. I really hope people get to hear that, because it can definitely like help you change the way your life is going. Just kind of like make the right decisions.
Yeah. In all things, right? It's not just in your career. It's in your personal.
In all things, yeah, exactly.
It's in your personal life and your mental life. I mean, you have to have. I mean, every day I start out with a cup of green tea by the fire before fire now, maybe not in the summer, before anybody's awake, and I sit, for just in the quiet. Like I have to start my day with just some quiet, and then I'll do some meditation. I'll burn some sage and I'll read some book, or and then I listen to documentaries, and then I might read some smut or watch a movie I shouldn't watch. Once in a while. But there's things that I have to do each day to help me align to be my best version of myself.
I love
But
it.
then, I have to give myself permission when I fail, which as a parent, it feels like, sometimes that's every single day. I know I'm doing good, but I don't think they always appreciate the good that I think I'm doing.
They will appreciate it eventually.
They will. My
They will.
23-year-old did say that last year, and I
Yeah.
was brought to tears. So it was quite an achievement when he said, "I'm so glad you raised me to be appreciative and to work for what I have instead of handing it all to me." So that was my crowning achievement.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't ever shooting the CrossFit Games. It was for my 23-year-old to tell me that I raised him right.
That's awesome. I
That
feel like
is
that's the
what
age that we start realizing how important our parents were,
matters.
because it kind of like, for me, I just grew up thinking, oh, that's what parents do. But whenever you reach a certain age, that's when you're like, oh wow, like now I understand all the sacrifices that they made for me and to raise me who I am.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a pretty good guy. I think what you're doing is great. I love the idea for this Content Lab podcast and bringing in a variety of experiences and helping people find ways and learn different ways to create. And I love your drive. You have all the opportunity in the world ahead of you.
Thank you so much. That means the world. Really mean it. Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I created this. I feel like it's it's a good opportunity for everybody to, to kind of like get your face out there, and like to tell people how you got started, your challenges along the way, success stories and all that. And it just, I feel like that's something I wanted to hear when I got started. Like I wish there was more like people telling me how they got started, and like how they got to the point that they are right now. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Well,
I woke up one day, I was like, oh, okay, I have this idea, I wanna do it.
a couple of other that my tattoos are experience. Experience is a strong core value of mine, and that's with the experience that you're gaining, but the experience opportunities you're giving for other people is extremely, I think, will extremely be beneficial as you continue to grow this, to stay on it, and authenticity. I'm a big fan of that. I think that it is really vital in this industry to just be as authentic as you can. You know, say, hey, this is. I have no problem saying I volunteered at the first CrossFit Games I went to. It's you have to be authentic. Don't misrepresent yourself in this
Yeah.
industry. Don't pretend to be shooting something you're not. And I think that's I think that's a lesson that people need to learn too. But just being real.
And
People can't, if people don't like me because I'm real, I'm okay with that, because there are people who don't like me because I'm a strong advocate of things that I think are injustices in the world, and I have no problem going on about how we fail in mental health of our athletes. And I'm this, and I try to be as authentic as I can. And if people don't like me because of that, I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, I give myself permission to be okay with that. And so I think in this industry, you've got to give yourself permission to be authentic and to also have experiences of failure and of growth and of learning, like you've done with this. This is a great opportunity, and I hope people tune in more as you continue to grow and see it. It should, I don't know what, you're just going to be on YouTube. Is that or are you going to put this
it's
on Apple too,
yeah,
or?
it's on Apple and Spotify. I'll probably be
Okay.
there. I'm gonna try to get it today because I'm going out of town tomorrow. So I think it'll
Yeah.
be.
Well, no, I just didn't know
Mhm.
where you had this all distributed. So
Yeah,
I think anywhere you can have
Spotify
it, where
and
you have
Apple.
opportunities to grow, and never know, maybe one day we'll see you as the number one on Apple.
Well, that's never been my goal to like grow it that much. As you said, my goal will potentially be somebody like letting me know, hey, dude, after the episode X, I don't know, this guy saw it and he works for this brand, and they were like very interested in like seeing my work, and then they checked my profile and he offered me, this opportunity. It'll be cool to do stuff like that. And I've talked to some of my friends that are like getting started and they don't have like the biggest following, I'm like, dude, I would love to have you on the show eventually. And most of the time their answer is like, oh dude, I'm not big enough, or I'm not good enough to be on your show because you've had, I don't know, Scott or Bennett or Heber or now Ginny. And I tell them that's not the reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I just want to just people meet more content creators and like have those content creators tell them about their experience, and hopefully, as I was mentioning earlier, hopefully people getting opportunities out of just having a conversation with me. And I
Yeah.
think eventually, hopefully, it's gonna happen that some people get opportunities
They will.
because
I
of it.
think I think you did touch on something that's really important too, and I don't know what our time frame is on this, but I do think that people, I mean, I'm definitely one of your lower followers people because I've never cared about followers. And this is going to sound, I hope this doesn't sound, oh, just a sec, I think my dog's going to get sick.
You're good.
Stay in this yard. Yeah, sorry. He goes and chases bunnies and then he goes to the next yard and I don't have his collar on. I think that I don't care about followers because I work. I
Yeah.
get work. And I know that some people really like, oh, hey, I hit this many followers, but followers doesn't equate work. I mean, I made more money last year working I worked a lot from from April to August, but that's it. I work part-time and I made more money than my husband was happy with because that just, annihilated, our taxes. And so, and I don't say that to sound conceited, but I work. So I guess followers to me aren't what changed the game. I hope people want to connect with me because I'm real and I'm authentic and I'm going to work really, really hard for you. But I'm also going to make your community and the people around me I hope feel good and feel appreciated. And so I think that's, and people, if Carlos asks you to be on the podcast, do it. Doesn't matter how many followers you have. What matters is the way you connect with people and the way you make people feel and the work that you do. Work hard. I mean, that speaks more to me than anybody who has 100,000 followers. That
I
doesn't
agree.
show me anything.
And that's what I
Look
tell
at
them.
my content. Like it's
Yeah.
always different. I'm not sharing the same content from one event the whole year,
Mhm.
create different ways. Even if it's a picture of it snowing in April, that's what I'm going to post. I'm going to post
Yeah,
what connects with me on my Instagram, not necessarily what's going to get likes.
I agree. And somebody told me that not that long ago, like, oh, I'm not getting any opportunities. Maybe if whenever I have, I don't know, 50,000 followers, I'll get opportunities. And in my mind, well, I did tell him, like, followers it doesn't equal opportunities or money. I know
No.
some of my favorite photographers have 3,000 followers, and I know they make a lot of money and they
Well, if
get,
you look at any Getty or
yeah, the 2,000
most
followers.
of
And
the professional level photographers don't have that number of followers, and
yeah,
that's because they're working. Like they're actively working, that they don't engage in that. I know that I lose followers every time I go on a rant about social injustice.
yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm like, you guys can all lose me. You can all stop following me if you're offended, because I'm going to stand up for people who needs being stood up for. So
Yeah, so definitely followers doesn't, I guess in some way can help you because you're reaching more people, but at the end of the day, that's not gonna
yeah, but
make
are
you
they
any
real?
money.
Or are they, like, I don't know. When you see somebody who has a lot of followers, and if you take the minute to look at your posts and you don't recognize any of those names or they're not mutual, it always makes me question if they're even really legitimate. I
Yeah,
mean, we know that on Instagram they have a lot of fake, like it's not legitimate, and it's a problem when you can buy it. Like
well, that's true.
you can't buy jobs, but you can
Very true.
buy followers and likes.
Yeah,
Great, all the power to you. I'm not. I like to spend my money on, good food and a good chai and vinyl
yeah, yeah.
records. I don't want to and new
Very true.
cameras, which I don't need any more of those, but it was an expensive
Yeah,
year for me with new cameras, but
that's C9.
Oh, she's so I'll tell you, I'm a nerd when it comes to movement. I told you I get out an anatomy and physiology book, but at that men's volleyball championship, I had not tried the 120 because I know I think I didn't realize how fast 120 frames per second actually shoots and how much all of a sudden I have like 4,000 images on.
Yeah.
Like, why am I running out of space on this 128 gigabyte card? And I was like, I knew ahead of time that I wanted to do it for like a hurdle and a high jump and a snatch, like where you really have a movement that just flows beautifully.
Hmm.
And so the first time I did it was when a guy went to jump serve, and it was like, I mean, I think you probably saw on my Instagram story, but it literally was poetry in motion. It was just beautiful. Like every bit of his muscle, like the musculature in his legs and the arch in his back. Like I could totally nerd out on that because it was so beautiful. Like it was just, I mean, and I was excited again. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't wait to use this even
Yeah.
more. Like this weekend is the Drake relays. And so I've got credentials for that. So I'm going to shoot some high school and some collegiate stuff, some athletes. And so I can't wait for pole vault to use that on pole
Yeah.
vault. Like I'm so excited.
I love when creators are passionate
Oh,
about
I get really nerdy, but yeah,
photos
that
and
Z9 is
also
pretty.
their own photos. I feel like people should be proud of their work.
Oh, I'm very proud of that Z9. She's special.
Well, Ginny, we've been on for almost an hour and a half,
Oh,
which is
wow.
great. Like I'm super honored that you had 90 minutes to to share with me and to everybody that's listening. But definitely, I feel like we can talk a lot more. Like we can just keep on talking, but at the same time, we gotta leave some for hopefully next time you come on the show
Yeah.
in the future.
Encore when I retire, which is getting close.
No, please don't retire.
Yeah,
Actually,
you
that's
need mom there, right?
yeah, true, true. So thank you everybody that listened to this episode. Make sure you like the post or the video on YouTube. We get like 200 something views, but 12 likes. Come on, you can like it. So everybody that's listening, please like it, subscribe. Before we leave, Ginny, I'm gonna ask you one question. What's next for you?
Uh, what's next for me is focusing on helping my daughter get ready for her first prom.
That's
She got
awesome.
invited to prom. It's a little nerve wracking for this mom because I said I wouldn't let her go until she's 16, and she turns 16 in a few weeks. And um, I'm going to try not to cry, but my baby's growing up.
Very true.
Like I said, when you have a daughter, it changes. It changes a lot. And so
That's awesome. Now you're gonna make me cry. I'm
so
starting
prom.
to.
We're getting ready
That's
for
a
prom. We
prom.
ordered a
Yeah,
whole bunch of dresses, and I'll be shooting Drake relays that day. But then we'll come and we'll get ready for prom. And I think her dad is actually going to have the worst time with that.
mm,
So that'll be fun to see my
yeah,
husband break down. And
that's great.
he's a lot more, actually, I never cry. It just must be my old age, getting older, but my husband will definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's seeing your kids achieve these things, like come to these points in their life. You realize that how short my time with her in our home is. And I think
Hmm.
that's really starting to resonate even more. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
I am extremely blessed and fortunate that I am able to be here and do all of those things that, to be as much a part of her life as I can.
That's great. That's why I posted that you're a full-time badass mom, right?
Well, not sure they agree with that, but hopefully they will. They will when they
Yeah,
turn 23, like my
yeah.
oldest one finally admitted. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. Hope to see you soon in one of the
yeah,
competitions. Hopefully,
yeah.
I'm going to the first weekend of semifinals at Syndicate. But if I
Okay.
don't see you there, hopefully I'll see you
No,
at the CrossFit
no
Games.
plans to be there. It's also remember iCub season, so we'll just see.
Absolutely. For
Well, thank
everybody
you for
that
having me,
no problem. For everybody that's listening, make sure you follow Ginny Coleman Photography on Instagram.
and make
You
sure you follow Carlos too.
okay? So if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Bound Media, BOWN Media, and please subscribe to the channel. We have, I think I'm gonna start doing one episode every week. Every once in a while, I might do two. So next episode, it's either this Friday or next week. already have some people planned. So a lot of awesome content creators. So just stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have Ginny back in the future.
Yeah, I'd hope so. It was fun. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you so much, everybody listening. Jordan,
Thank
Brian,
you all for the
Wendy,
questions.
Charles,
Good luck. Keep
Dalton,
up.
Lillian,
Keep up.
everybody that's been listening, supporting. It's gonna be on Spotify soon. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Ginny.
Thanks. See you
Appreciate it.
later.
See you guys. Have a good one.